What happens when Ivanka Trump tries to go head-to-head with Barack Obama on stage? She expected to rattle him, but instead, Obama delivered one calm, devastating line that left the entire room frozen. Today, we're breaking down that unforgettable moment, and why it shows exactly why so many people still see Obama as the master of the mic. The stage lights glowed bright, and the air carried that heavy silence you only feel before something big is about to happen. Rows upon rows of people filled the grand hall. Every seat was taken. Reporters leaned forward with pens ready, and cameras from every angle captured the moment. This wasn't just another panel, and it wasn't just another speech. Tonight was different. This was a gathering of America's most influential voices, leaders, and thinkers, all brought together to talk about one thing: the future of the nation. People wanted answers, they wanted direction, and they expected this night to deliver it. In the center of the stage, two figures sat in sharp contrast to one another. On the left, Barack Obama, the former president, known for his calm but commanding presence. Every time he stepped into a room, there was an energy, a quiet authority that pulled people in. He didn't have to raise his voice to make the crowd listen. On the right, Ivanka Trump, daughter of the sitting president. Elegant, polished, and with a quiet determination in her eyes. She was used to being in the spotlight, used to defending her father's choices, and used to being underestimated. Tonight, though, she wasn't just here as a daughter. She was here as a voice, a representative of her family's power inside the White House. The contrast between them was striking. Obama in his composed, thoughtful posture, Ivanka sharp and ready to prove herself. You could almost sense the tension before a single word was even spoken. The moderator introduced the evening, a serious conversation about the challenges ahead, from the economy to national unity. A chance for ideas to clash, but also for solutions to rise. The atmosphere was charged but respectful. At first, the discussion moved smoothly. Questions were asked, and Obama spoke with his usual rhythm, careful, deliberate, painting pictures with his words. He talked about responsibility, about the need for truth and integrity in leadership. The audience nodded along, some even scribbling notes, soaking in every word. Ivanka, when called on, spoke with confidence. She highlighted her father's work, defending his decisions and his leadership style. Her words were polished, rehearsed even, but delivered with the kind of certainty that comes from growing up inside a world of power. For a while, it seemed like the night might go exactly as planned, a serious, balanced discussion. But beneath the surface, you could feel something shifting. A clash was brewing. You could see it in the way Ivanka occasionally glanced at Obama with a spark of challenge in her eyes. And you could see it in the way Obama stayed calm, watching, almost as if he was waiting for the inevitable. The audience, too, felt it. That anticipation, that sense that the real moment of the night hadn't come yet. People shifted forward in their seats, almost subconsciously leaning toward the stage, waiting. Then it happened. Obama leaned into the microphone, his voice steady and clear. He asked a question, not an attack, not a jab, but a serious question about leadership. What kind of leadership do we want for this country? The kind that builds trust, or the kind that tears it down? It was a powerful question, a question that made the room fall still. People were ready to hear the answers, but before anyone else could speak, Ivanka jumped in. Her voice cut through the silence, sharp, direct, and unexpected. She didn't answer his question about leadership. Instead, she turned the spotlight on Obama himself. She challenged his credibility. She questioned his birth certificate. She repeated the old claim, the one long disproven, the one born out of political attacks years ago. She said he was not truly born in the United States. And just like that, the entire mood of the room shifted. The respectful tone was gone. The calm discussion evaporated. What Ivanka had thrown onto the table wasn't policy, wasn't vision, wasn't the future. It was personal. The audience gasped. Some looked stunned. Others exchanged nervous glances. The camera zoomed closer, trying to capture the expression on Obama's face. This was no longer just a panel discussion. This was a clash. Obama didn't move right away. He didn't rush to defend himself. Instead, he sat there, still as stone, letting the silence stretch. The kind of silence that builds pressure. The kind that makes every second feel like an hour. Everyone waited. How would he answer? Would he fight fire with fire? Would he ignore her? Or would he do something completely unexpected? The stage was set. The battle had begun, and the entire room knew what happened next would be remembered for years. For a while, the conversation had stayed polite. The moderator asked questions. Obama answered with that signature calm confidence, and Ivanka chimed in with polished remarks about her father's leadership. The atmosphere was firm but respectful, the kind of debate people expected at an event about America's future. But then came the moment that changed everything. Obama leaned forward slightly, his hands clasped, his voice steady but carrying through the entire hall. He asked the kind of question that makes people stop and think, a question that cut deeper than numbers or policies. What kind of leadership do we want for this country? Leadership that builds trust? Or leadership that tears it down? The room went silent. Every head turned toward him. It wasn't loud, it wasn't flashy, but the weight of the words landed like a hammer. You could almost feel the air tighten. The audience waited for a thoughtful answer. Maybe from Ivanka, maybe from another speaker. But before the moderator could even move to the next person, Ivanka leaned into her microphone. And that's when it happened. Her voice was clear, sharp, and filled with challenge. She didn't address the question about leadership. Instead, she went straight for Obama. She brought up the one claim that had followed him like a shadow years earlier. She said, "How can you even talk about leadership when you've never proven you were truly born in this country?" The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Gasps broke out across the room. A few people covered their mouths. Others shook their heads in disbelief. You could hear whispers spreading through the audience like fire. Obama didn't react immediately. He stayed still, his eyes fixed on her, his expression unreadable. But the silence, oh, the silence, was louder than any shout. The cameras zoomed in. You could almost hear the collective thought racing through the room. Did she really just go there? This wasn't about the economy. This wasn't about unity or growth. This was personal. This was raw. Ivanka had dragged an old conspiracy, one that had been disproven countless times, back into the spotlight, right there, in front of millions of watching eyes. And she knew exactly what she was doing. Her words weren't random. They carried her father's style. Bold, disruptive, designed to rattle, designed to throw an opponent off balance. But here's the twist. Instead of rattling Obama, it rattled the entire room. Some in the audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others stared straight ahead, waiting for the explosion they thought was about to come. Because in moments like these, tempers usually flare. People shout, arguments spiral. That's what everyone expected. But Obama didn't move. He didn't speak. Not yet, he just let the silence hang. Seconds ticked by, but they felt like minutes. The weight of Ivanka's words pressed down on the hall, and the longer Obama stayed quiet, the more the tension built. You could almost hear hearts beating faster. Would he snap back? Would he lash out? Or would he let it slide? Ivanka, meanwhile, sat tall, her chin slightly raised as if she had landed a strike. You could see the hint of satisfaction in her eyes, as though she believed she had cornered him. But what she didn't realize was that Obama was not shaken. He was calculating. He was waiting. And the longer he stayed calm, the more the audience turned from shock to anticipation. Everyone leaned forward now, waiting for him to speak, waiting for the response that would decide who controlled the stage. The question wasn't just hanging in the air anymore. It was burning, demanding an answer. And when Obama finally did speak, it wasn't just going to be a reply. It was going to be the start of something no one expected. The clash had officially begun. The silence in that hall was unbearable. Every person inside could feel the weight of Ivanka's challenge pressing against the air. Her words, sharp, personal, and designed to wound, were still echoing. Most expected Obama to fire back immediately. After all, that's how these clashes usually go. A sharp attack, then a sharper counterattack. Voices rise, tempers flare, and the audience watches the sparks fly. But that's not what happened. Obama sat still, perfectly still. His face didn't crack. He didn't flinch. He didn't even lean forward. Instead, he let the silence stretch, long enough for Ivanka's words to lose their sting. The audience began shifting in their seats. Some glanced nervously at each other. Others leaned forward, bracing for what was about to come. Then finally he spoke, and when he did, it wasn't with anger. It wasn't even loud. His voice was calm, low, steady. but it carried through the room with a force that silence had prepared. "That claim has been disproven 1,000 times," he said. "The truth doesn't bend, no matter how many times you repeat a lie." The words weren't shouted, but they landed like a hammer, direct, unshakable. The audience reacted instantly, whispers, nods, even soft applause from a corner of the hall. It was as if a tension had broken, as if Obama's calm confidence had cut through the fog. But he didn't stop there. He leaned in slightly, his eyes locked on Ivanka, and continued. "We may stand on different sides of politics. That's not new. But truth matters. Facts matter. And if we can't agree on that, then everything else falls apart." His tone sharpened, but not with rage, with conviction. It was the kind of voice that didn't just answer a question, but pulled everyone listening into something bigger. Then came the twist that shifted the entire moment. Obama wasn't just answering Ivanka. He was putting the whole stage, the whole audience, on notice. Politics has become a game. Your father, he turned it into a performance. He used mockery, insults, distractions, and yes, I had to deal with it every single day. But let's be clear. Games don't change reality. Games don't erase facts. A murmur rolled through the audience. Heads turned toward Ivanka, who now sat with her lips pressed tight, her posture stiff. Obama didn't raise his voice. He didn't slam the table. He didn't need to. His calmness was the weapon. The steadiness in his tone made Ivanka's interruption feel smaller, weaker. And here's the remarkable part. Instead of tearing her down with insults, Obama elevated the moment. He shifted it from a petty attack into a lesson. He wasn't just defending himself. He was teaching, reminding everyone in the room that politics should not be a circus of lies and rumors. The audience could feel the shift. What began as a tense clash was turning into something much larger, something meaningful. And Ivanka, who had stepped in so boldly just minutes before, now found herself overshadowed by Obama's poise. But then, just when it seemed like he was finished, Obama paused. He tilted his head slightly, his expression unreadable. And that's when everyone realized. He wasn't done. He had one more move, one more line that would completely change the direction of the clash. The entire hall leaned forward again. Because if his calm response had already silenced the sting of Ivanka's attack, what he was about to say next would flip the night upside down. The audience thought Obama was finished. His calm, razor-sharp response had already shifted the room. Ivanka's attack had been deflected and order seemed restored. But then Obama leaned back ever so slightly, almost casual, as if deciding whether to say the next line out loud. He looked directly at Ivanka. His eyes narrowed just enough to signal that something was coming. And when he finally spoke, the words were simple, but they sliced through the air like a blade. "Can you answer who Barron's mom is?" The room froze. At first, people weren't sure they had heard correctly, but the silence that followed told them they had. Every face turned toward Ivanka. Every camera zoomed in. The entire hall seemed to hold its breath. Ivanka blinked, her confident mask cracking for the very first time that night. Her mouth opened, but no words came out right away. When she finally spoke, her voice was tighter, higher, almost defensive. She tried to twist the meaning, tried to laugh it off, but her tone betrayed her. This wasn't the poised, polished Ivanka from just a few minutes ago. This was someone rattled. Obama, however, didn't flinch. He remained calm, his voice steady, almost unnervingly controlled. And then, with the same precision as before, he followed up. "Maybe you should ask Melania." The hall erupted in whispers. Some gasped audibly. Others covered their mouths in shock. The energy in the room shifted violently, like a storm breaking over calm waters. Ivanka's face tightened. Her hands clenched together on the table. She tried to push back, raising her voice, insisting that Obama was crossing a line. But the louder she became, the more out of control she looked. Obama, on the other hand, stayed completely composed. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't match her tone. Instead, he sat there with the confidence of someone who knew he had already won. Then came the moment that cemented the turning point. Obama leaned in slightly, his tone lower but sharper. "Be careful, Ivanka, because I have documents. Official records, proof. If you want to turn this into a game of questions and accusations, then understand, I can play that game too. And I will win." The hall went silent again, dead silent. The kind of silence that made people lean forward in their seats, desperate not to miss a word. Ivanka's composure slipped even further. She stammered, tried to regain control, but it was too late. Obama had flipped the script. He had taken her attack, turned it back on her, and now held the entire room in the palm of his hand. It wasn't just about the words anymore. It was about presence. Ivanka looked defensive, emotional, and cornered. Obama looked calm, steady, and in control. And in politics and in moments like this, and perception is everything, the audience could feel it. The tension had transformed into something else, a realization. This wasn't Ivanka pressing Obama anymore. This was Obama pressing Ivanka. And as he sat back, letting his words settle, the power dynamic on stage had completely shifted. Ivanka had entered the clash ready to challenge him. She wanted to shake him, to test him, to prove she could stand toe-to-toe with Barack Obama. But instead she was the one on defense. Scrambling to hold her ground, Obama, without raising his voice, had turned the confrontation into a lesson, a masterclass in composure, a reminder that sometimes the most devastating blows aren't delivered with anger, but with precision. The audience knew it. Ivanka knew it. And most importantly, Obama knew it. The turning point had arrived. And from here there was no going back. Ivanka sat frozen. Her earlier fire had faded into silence. The audience could see it. The energy that once carried her voice had vanished, replaced by uncertainty. She had tried to corner Obama, but now she was the one cornered. And in that silence, Obama rose, not physically, but in presence. He leaned slightly toward the microphone, his eyes scanning the crowd, his voice calm yet commanding. Influence, he began, is not about how loud you can shout. It is not about how many times you repeat a rumor until people start to believe it. Influence is responsibility. The words were steady, deliberate, and they landed with weight. The audience leaned in, caught between the tension of the clash and the wisdom of the moment. He continued, his tone firm but not harsh. Truth matters. Respect matters. Without them, no amount of power will ever mean anything. You can hold the highest office, you can sit in the most powerful room. But if you lose honesty and respect, you lose it all. It wasn't just a message to Ivanka. It was a message to the entire hall. A message to everyone watching. Obama paused, his eyes glancing toward Ivanka only briefly, just enough for the audience to notice. She shifted uncomfortably, still without a word. Then, with precision, he added something that made the audience shift again. For years, we've heard unsettling things. Remarks from your father about you. Comments that were not just inappropriate but deeply troubling. And yet, they've been brushed aside. Let me say this clearly. Respect is not optional. Respect is the foundation of leadership. The hall fell into absolute silence. No one whispered. No one moved. Everyone understood the gravity of what had just been said. Obama didn't linger on the point. He didn't need to. Instead, he straightened slightly and spoke directly to the audience as if the confrontation on stage had been merely the setup for a larger truth. Politics will always be messy. People will argue. People will fight. But when lies become the language of leadership, when personal attacks replace honest debate, we all lose. And we deserve better. His words rolled through the hall like waves, firm and unshakable. And then, with the same calm power he had carried from the beginning, Obama delivered the final blow, not to Ivanka directly, but to the entire idea she had tried to stand on. So ask yourselves this. What kind of leadership do you want? What kind of truth do you demand? Because history will not remember who shouted the loudest. History will remember who stood with integrity when it mattered most. The line hit hard. People in the audience nodded. Some even clapped softly, not out of excitement but out of deep agreement. Ivanka's silence was louder than any response she could have given. She glanced down, her posture tight, her confidence stripped away. Finally, without a word, she rose from her seat and left the stage. All eyes followed her as she walked away. And when the doors closed behind her, the sound of her footsteps faded into nothingness. Obama, still seated, didn't gloat. He didn't smile. Instead, he let the silence stretch, then looked straight into the audience one last time. Leadership is not about tearing others down, he said. It's about building something real, something honest. And that choice is not just for leaders. It's for all of us. He left the stage not with a shout, not with a fight, but with a lesson. And as the lights dimmed, One truth remained. Ivanka Trump had entered that night ready to challenge Barack Obama. But it was Obama who walked away having defined the moment, with one sentence that silenced the room and a message that echoed far beyond it. So, what do you think about this intense exchange between Ivanka Trump and Barack Obama? Do you believe Obama's calm response was the perfect way to handle it? Or should he have gone even further? I'd love to hear your perspective. Share your thoughts down in the comment section and let's keep this conversation going.